All right, so today we're diving into something pretty big. How do we make sense of all the changes and challenges life kind of throws at us, you know?
Yeah, it's a question we all grapple with.
Right, and we've got some really fascinating insights to explore, coming from a specific tradition of thought that gives us this framework for understanding these uncertainties, maybe even finding some peace with it all.
Definitely. I think it's something we can all benefit from in today's world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our mission in this deep dive, let's call it that, is to pull out those key ideas for you without getting lost in the weeds. You know, we want to make it practical.
Yeah, exactly. We
Yeah.
want to make it something you can actually apply.
Okay, perfect. So let's jump right in. The first concept is Quanqiu Votuing, which translates to the contemplation of impermanence. It basically means understanding that everything is constantly changing, you know, like nothing stays the same.
Right. And on the surface, it might seem simple, but when you really internalize it, it can be a pretty big shift.
Yeah, I can see that. So how does it actually change things for us when we truly grasp this idea of impermanence?
Well, you know, a lot of our anxiety comes from this resistance to change, right? We want things to stay the same, or we're afraid of what might happen next. But when you really get this deep understanding of impermanence, it's like you learn to swim with the current instead of fighting against it.
Okay, I like that analogy.
You start to loosen your grip on those expectations, and that allows for more acceptance of both the good and the bad times, seeing them as just phases, you know?
That makes a lot of sense. It's like knowing that the weather's going to change. You prepare for it instead of getting caught off guard.
Exactly.
Now, our sources also talk about this idea of kunyip and bitnyip, which are essentially collective and individual karma.
Yeah.
Can you break down how these two interact?
Oh, absolutely. So kanyip refers to the shared circumstances that affect groups, you know,
Yeah.
like a community facing an economic downturn, for example.
Right.
And then bitnip is how each individual within that shared situation experiences it. So let's say there's a drought. That's the kanyip. One farmer might have diversified their crops and they weathered the drought better, while another one faces ruin. That's their bitnip.
So even though they're in the same situation, they experience it differently?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the shared event unfolds differently for each person based on their own past actions and circumstances, their individual karma.
Okay, so we're all connected, facing some things together, but our individual experiences within those events can vary dramatically.
Yes, exactly.
Now, is this karma something we're just stuck with, or can we actually influence it in any way?
This is where it gets really interesting because your bitnik, your individual karma, can absolutely be shaped through your actions. Things like living ethically, being generous, practicing mindfulness through meditation, and just generally trying to do good in the world all contribute to positive change.
So it's about making conscious choices.
Yeah, and then transforming kanyip, the collective karma, that requires a much broader shift, you know? It's like a community or society consciously moving towards more compassionate and beneficial actions together.
So it's like individual efforts can ripple outwards, but for larger scale change, you need that collective intention.
Exactly.
Now, there's also this discussion about natural disasters, what they call thentai in the text. And it presents them not as some kind of punishment, but as a result of karma, which is a pretty different perspective.
Yeah, very different. The sources clarify that even places with a lot of spiritual practitioners aren't exempt from natural disasters.
You'd think they'd get a pass, right?
Right. But it's not seen that way. These events are seen as the consequences of past actions, both individual and collective, playing out.
So it's not about blame, it's about cause and effect.
Exactly. And the key here is the interpretation. Instead of seeing these events as a sign of failure or divine anger, they're seen as powerful reminders of impermanence and the urgency of spiritual growth.
So it's like a wake-up call.
Exactly. A call to action to deepen our practice rather than lose faith.
Yeah, and the text even says that wise individuals don't just lament during disasters. They use them to contemplate impermanence and intensify their path to liberation.
Absolutely. They see those challenging times not as setbacks, but as opportunities for learning and for strengthening their inner resolve.
Pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And it concludes with these aspirations, wishing for the end of suffering, sharing merit with all beings, and hoping for everyone's well-being and happiness. It seems like a very compassionate and forward-looking way to approach things.
Definitely. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness and working towards a better future for all.
And that brings us full circle, right? If we bring it all together, what we see is this deep interconnectedness between the ever-changing nature of reality, our individual and collective actions, and the potential for positive transformation through mindful and ethical living. It's like a roadmap for navigating life's ups and downs with more wisdom.
I think that's a great way to put it.
So for you, our listener, we'll leave you with this thought. How might understanding these ideas of impermanence and interconnectedness shift your perspective on your own personal challenges and the larger events happening in the world?
It's definitely something to reflect on.
It's worth considering how these ancient insights resonate with your own experiences today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, take care.
You too.